vet came out, took the x-rays on site at my old yard, and it showed that he had kissing spines in 7 places. So that's basically between 9 vertebrae.
This is Riding with Ree. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I'm sharing my experience of having bought my first horse as an adult in Surrey, UK, as well as sharing stories from the equestrian world. Today I'm sitting down with Tara, a friend of mine who is currently in the process of rehabbing her horse from kissing spine surgery. Kissing spine is a diagnosis that a lot of owners fear, so I really wanted to sit down with someone who is currently going through it and talk about what that feels like from an owner's perspective. We'll be talking about the actual process of diagnosing kissing spine, as well as the process of surgery and the rehab stage, which Tara is in at the moment. Whilst Tara has agreed to graciously give up her time to share this personal story, I would encourage you to remember that it is a personal story, and Tara is working with a team of professionals to make sure she's doing everything right for her horse. So as always, I would encourage you to share your personal stories of your own, or any questions or comments you have down below. Remember that this is a very emotional and individual journey for anyone, and to be kind and think before you place a comment. Thank you. Now, before we dive into that with Tara, I wanted to give you a little Woody update. As you will have seen from last week's video, if you haven't watched it, I'll pop it up here. We are in the midst of doing 2 weeks of long lining. This has also come alongside 2 of the busiest work weeks I've ever had, which means that when I'm down here at the yard on the weekend doing my filming and spending time with Woody, I really like to make the most of it. That often means that I leave super early and I don't get back until quite a bit later in the afternoon, and I often don't have breakfast before I come, which is where lovely Y Food comes in. Y Food is a brand that I have spoken about before, and they have very kindly sponsored this video. I've previously shown you their vegan protein shakes. They also have these in non-vegan flavors, and they help to keep you fuller for longer. When I'm up here for hours and I don't want to run to the garage and get food, I always bring a Y Food protein shake. Cacao is my favorite flavor. This is the vegan one, but they have a bunch of other flavors, including a new non-vegan peanut butter one. So if you want to try any of those, I have a discount code. It's RE10. I'll pop it in the description below if you want to check them out. All right, let's get into it with Tara. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
You're very welcome.
You're obviously stabled here with me, and you are in the process of rehabbing your lovely horse Bourbon.
I am indeed.
From kissing spine surgery. When people hear about kissing spine, it feels like this really, I guess, a bit of a worst case scenario, a bit of a nightmare for a lot of owners.
Yeah.
So take me back to when you first found out. How did that process happen?
You are not wrong at all. It does feel like the end of the world when you get the diagnosis. I think I cried for about 3 days afterwards. When I got Bourbon, he was previously a hunter over in Ireland. He came to me with, unfortunately, a lot of muscle atrophy along his back, all the hallmark signs of having been ridden for a long time in a badly fitted saddle. And in March, he'd had a couple of months of physio, pure groundwork, and the vet came out to do his vaccinations. Because she'd been the one to see him right from the start, I sort of said, would you mind just giving him a quick once over, make sure you're happy with him. And when she sort of palpated down along his spine from his withers down, he showed a reaction. So look, I don't think it's likely to be anything major. It could even just be that where you're still building his back up, he just needs more time. But if it was me, I would get x-rays done just for reassurance and peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really so glad that I did.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I dread to think,
it could have carried on.
Yeah. She's very, very good natured, and sort of doesn't show a lot of pain and resistance unless it gets really bad.
Yeah.
So it could have gone on for another several months and gotten a lot worse. At the end of March, vet came out, took the x-rays on site at my old yard, and it showed that he had kissing spines in 7 places. So that's basically between 9 vertebrae. So it was a lot worse than either I or the vet was expecting. It's obviously a massive, massive shock.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the initial x-rays, I'll be honest with you, it looks as though he's probably going to need a partial reshape of a couple of vertebrae because they're so close together and touching, and then a ligament snip between the rest.
And that's the two types of surgery you can have with kissing spine, isn't it? And you had to have both.
Yeah, so that they're going through sort of as close to keyhole as they can.
Yeah.
And they literally shave down some of the overlapping vertebrae to create some space. And then they'll still snip the ligament part way down in between as well. The other one is literally just the ligament snip. And what that does is a twofold thing. So my understanding of it is that not only does it help to kind of relax the ligament along the back, and therefore it helps encourage the vertebrae to respace naturally, it also helps to act as like a nerve blocker basically.
Right.
So as you're rehabbing them, they don't feel the pain, because obviously if you try and rehab them through the pain, then they're going to struggle, because as you're asking them to flex their back up, it's going to hurt. So it kind of saves them that. It makes it a lot easier for them to recover. It does reknit together, it's not a permanent thing, and as it reknits, the feeling does come back. But by that point, obviously the idea is if you've done the rehab properly, then there is no pain there anymore, and they will continue to work as they have been whilst it continued to heal. My vets were great, so big shout out to Lingfield Equine. Thank you so much, guys. They managed to fit me in 4 weeks after the initial x-rays. The vet also said that she wanted to have him undergo a hind limb lameness workup first as well, because with kissing spines it can either be a primary issue or a secondary that's been caused by something else, but either way there is usually at least one other issue that goes with it, and she wanted to make sure that there was no primary issue causing it that would need to be treated first.
We're many months on now, and so you've had chance to deal with it and process it, and you're sort of I feel like you're very positive and forward thinking. But when you first found out, having it be such a shock, and obviously you hadn't really had him a very long time, did you find yourself that evening or the next couple of days looking back at when you bought him and being like, oh God, I wish I'd done this, or I missed this sign? Which isn't helpful, by the way.
No, it's really not. Don't do it, guys. If you can avoid it, don't. Be happy.
Because it's not your fault. It's no one's fault. It's one of these things, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I had definitely had the guilt, but I kind of tried to look back, as you said, kind of look back and go, should I have done something different when I first got him? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Have I done something to make it worse? And in all honesty, I think this was really my saving grace, which is why for the most part I'm being so positive about it, is the fact that I couldn't really think of any.
Did you two-stage, or did you vet him?
I actually didn't get him vetted. I'll be completely honest, this is not a recommendation. If you want to get a horse vetted, please by all means do so. I've been very, very lucky that I've never ever had an issue with a horse until now. Would I get the next one vetted? It's very difficult to say, because I don't think that anything to this extreme would have been flagged up at the time.
You would have had to have x-rayed everything.
Exactly.
And
I would have had to have gone for a full set of x-rays. Even then, if you get it at the wrong or the right angle, depending on how you look at it, it still might not have actually shown up, because they have to take the picture. You imagine a horse's back, how wide it is. They have to go through all those layers. It's not like an x-ray leg and you can see everything crystal clear. It's quite faded because they're going through all the tissue. So if they hadn't captured at the right angle, it could well still have been missed. But I still felt incredibly guilty, simply for the fact that I had been riding him, and he could well have had this when I got him.
With these lovely kind-natured horses, you have to pay so much attention when they whisper that something is wrong, because it's going to take them a lot to get to a point where they're shouting at you, bucking and whatever, to tell you that something's wrong. And he did whisper. He told you there's something a little bit off here. You took action, and actually it's led you to a good place. So,
and obviously the other thing is that when it is a new horse, you're getting used to them. You don't know their behaviour patterns.
Your mind doesn't automatically go oh my God, this could be a sign of it doesn't go that way. So
if you've had a horse for 5 years and all of a sudden their behaviour changes, then you're going to know that something is wrong. But when it's a brand new horse, you are getting to know them, they're getting to know you. It's very difficult. So I'd made arrangements. He'd go in on the Thursday for the hind limb lameness workup. On the Friday he would have the surgery. And I would pick him up on the Monday. So I got the phone call at lunchtime to say he'd had the lameness workup, surgery could go ahead. They then have to re-x-ray on site in the surgery, because they put little markers on to show where the vertebrae are and where the ligaments are in between that need working on. And when they re-x-rayed, they actually managed to get a better angle, which is what I mean about, it does very much depend on getting the right angle on it. They got a better angle and realised actually he wouldn't need the partial reshave
Oh,
of
amazing.
a couple of his vertebrae. Obviously, fabulous news.
Yeah.
So instead of that, he's literally had the ligament partially snipped between 9 vertebrae, so in 7 places along his spine. When he came out, he had a pad along his back to keep it covered for a few days. Literally, it's just a little bump in each spot with a stitch in. That's how small it is. To begin with, it was 2 weeks of box rest with just sort of 30 minutes morning and evening, walking him out very carefully in hand just to get him stretching. By the end of the 2 weeks, because we have the Claydon turnout pen, which for you guys that might not know, it's literally a very small high fenced pen, so it's just bigger than the size of a stable would be.
Tiny field.
Yeah, so literally a tiny field in the middle of a bigger field. So he went out in that for a few days, just for like an hour at a time. Had the vet come out, check him over and say, yeah, everything is looking good, and took the stitches out, and I could start doing sort of more of a normal restricted turnout pattern from then. So since then, he's been going out a few hours every day with a couple of very, very relaxed field buddies. We continued on with the 30 minutes in-hand walking for a couple of weeks, and then we've been slowly building it up from there. So obviously you then start doing lunging and long lining and stuff, really working to get them stretching down, introducing pole work, baited exercises, anything to really get him flexing his back, because the whole thing with this is that where their back has dipped down, which is what causes the vertebrae to touch, you have to teach them to really start using their abdomen to lift up through their back properly. So kind of like doing, you know, kind of sit-ups, that kind of thing for us to really improve
like
our core, to then improve our posture. But obviously because their back is horizontal, gravity has such a stronger effect on them, and being obviously a lot heavier anyway, they really have to work very hard in order to start lifting up through the abs and, you know, kind of get the back to a good position. The only problem that we've had is that when he had his back done, originally he was meant to be having a sarcoid removed on his elbow at the same time, which couldn't go ahead in the end. So that was done 5 weeks ago, and because it's right on his elbow, where I should be long lining him, you know, sort of pretty much every day at the moment, I've not been able to do that because the wound would actually rub against the roller.
Not a great deal of luck happening.
No. So I've been trying to be really, really creative with what I do with him. We actually had physio yesterday out who gave us a glowing report as to his progress. She said she was so pleased with him, and especially given, you know, the problems I've had the last several weeks where I've not been able to kind of up his, what would be his normal rehab pattern. She said that he was doing amazingly well. His back is so much stronger, and that she wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon he starts telling me that he's now ready to start cantering. It's been 11 weeks or 11 and a half weeks now since his surgery. We've got his 12-week post-op checkup next week. Great. With the actual surgeon as well. So fingers crossed he also says yes, it's all going well. Ordinarily, I know a lot of horses that have had just the ligament snip surgery, they are actually sort of undersaddled by now. You know, sort of between weeks 10 and 12, they're undersaddled, they're starting to be ridden. But obviously we kind of had to take it a lot slower because of his elbow. But I'm imagining it's probably going to be another month, possibly 2, before I get the go-ahead to start doing that.
What does, if you don't mind me asking, what does the future look like? I guess, what were you planning for him when you bought him, and what has changed, if anything?
So I bought him as a jumping horse. When I got him, he was happily jumping 1.10 m. And yeah, my plan was to show jumping, some dressage, maybe even a bit of one-day eventing with him. In terms of the future, the vast majority of horses that undergo kissing spine surgery make a full recovery. Amazing. I mean, there's a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a member of on, obviously on Facebook, there's support groups for owners that have horses with kissing spines. And you know, there are people posting in there that, you know, their horses are now out doing like 2-star eventing and stuff. If they can do that with their horses, I'm like, well, there's absolutely no reason that, provided I am super careful with his rehab and the way I handle him just in general, that my plans for him should have any change to them.
But I can imagine that Facebook group has been a real, like, I guess, place of hope. Seeing that, like, what could be at the end of the tunnel, I imagine is a really nice thing to have. Yeah,
absolutely. Literally, you get people posting on there, so people that, you know, are kind of where I was almost 3 months ago, people that just had the diagnosis, or even just, you know, waiting for the vet to come out, and they're worried that their horse has kissing spines. people saying, you know, hold on guys, because I know that we all have these days where it seems like it's never going to get better, but it does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's about having the right people around you. My vet, my farrier, my physio.
Yeah.
Obviously our trainer and yard owner here has been fantastic. But just my boyfriend and like my family.
Yeah.
They're really, I'd say, what's gotten me through this more than anything. There are those moments when it's not going so well, you have a bad day, he doesn't want to, you know, sort of go walking around or be long lines or whatever. Being able to kind of go home and sort of talk it out, I think is what's probably got me through it more than anything else could have.
I mean, it's so emotional, even just sat here like trying to interview you. I'm trying not to like get upset because obviously I want to ask you the questions and I don't want you to get upset, but it's obviously it's so tied up in emotion, this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So I can imagine how helpful that would have been. But like I said, I'm so proud of you and the work that you've done, and I see you every day out there, and you know, every time I speak to you, you're very positive, and I think you've come through a really difficult patch, and I really hope that this will be helpful for anyone else who's at the start or is afraid of this happening, or you know, it's one of those things. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're very welcome. As I said at the start, you know, when I first got the news, it was as though my world had ended. But what I have found is that that's not the case. As long as you are prepared to put the time and the effort and the emotion in, not just like for me personally, but you know, the emotions being positive around him, so that he's not struggling, because obviously they do pick up on your emotions. It's about making sure that they stay positive as well. I miss riding so much, but I know for a fact that, you know, whether it's in a couple of weeks' time or a couple of months' time, I'm going to be getting back on him. And that moment when I do...
Yeah, going to be massive.
Yeah.
Huge achievement. No, it's okay. Oh, don't. I'm going to cry. Oh, goodness. I know. Well, we'll be here, and I really hope maybe we can capture that moment and share it, because I think...
Absolutely, yeah.
I think if you haven't felt the emotion, you will have by now. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, Tara. Oh, I don't want you to cry.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. It's probably overdue. It's been a while.
I know. I'm like, I've been holding. Like, it's been building the whole interview. I'm like.